Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Biz Dev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. I'm David Baxter, your host, and I am joined, per usual, by Gary Voigt, who just happened to win the award for Worst Uber Driver. Congratulations, Gary.
Yeah, the award came with a speeding ticket, and I lost my job. Great award.
Well, boy, you're used to losing those jobs, aren't you? I fire you every
The
week.
1-star thing, though, I mean, that hurts.
Is that hurt? Well, you can only take out so many mailboxes before they start to complain. That's all I'm saying.
I had like bottles of water. Granted, they were warm, but I mean, I had a USB cable connected. I had a little electrical tape where it started to fray, but it still worked, kind of.
You're stealing their data from your USB cable.
Just plug this in. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry where it goes. All right. More importantly, we are joined by John Newbury, who is the CEO of Gopher Inc. And we're going to find out what that means in just a little bit. First, I was reading through. Oh, hi, John. I should say hi. I always forget to do that. So hello. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So I was reading through your LinkedIn, as one does, and I noticed that you have been several different things at Gopher. Currently, you're the CEO, have been for the last 2 years. But you were other things. And so I thought it would be interesting to talk about leadership. And as you've moved forward, you were originally co-founder, then managing partner and co-founder, and now CEO. What do those mean? And what does that mean practically?
Well, so when we first started Gopher, we were trying to figure out who does what were our roles going to be. And two of my partners, Jay and Tom, already had full-time gigs, and I had just had an opening with a transition out of the fitness industry. So they graciously volunteered me, thinking that I would have more time than them. So we, had kind of put together what roles and operations that we were each going to tackle, and then as time progressed, I kind of tackled everything. So those titles really are internal per se.
Sure.
Maybe it was just at the time I wanted to get some LinkedIn attention. I don't know. Probably not. But I've been operating and managing the day-to-day with Gopher from day one. I've taken on some other roles, most significantly, probably the development. I initially wasn't kind of overseeing our first developer. And then later on, I took over that. I meet with our developer every single day, whether it's a demo or to tighten up on a particular enhancement or, anything in between.
So not to go into this too far right now, but your development, you have that internally, externally?
Yeah, so we're outsourcing it currently.
Nice.
We have just actually started with a new group. We're looking at it like an accelerator, and going to get a lot more things accomplished than we would with just myself, which is exciting times.
Very cool. Very cool. So the practical question of that, so the question behind the question was leadership. Was something I like to ask some of our guests is, what does leadership mean to you, since you've been the head honcho of your app for a while and other leadership positions before that? What does that mean practically to you? What is it that makes you a leader? What is it, something that you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that a leader is somebody that listens more than they talk, so that when they talk, they're more impactful. I've had some pretty good role models in my career doing just that, and I found it impressive that they commanded such attention from a large workforce, and really didn't just go out rah, rah, rah all the time. But whenever it would be a board meeting, whatever there was said was extremely impactful. And if it was a field visit, there would be always a time where I could catch these folks talking to employees, listening with both ears, and then changes coming from those conversations. And I just thought it was something that I wanted to carry on for the rest of my life, with everything. I mean, this is even practical to home life, right? But to where the people that are working for you feel valued enough to where they can give you that unfiltered, raw feedback on something that's important to them. And in some cases, that feedback, obviously being important to everybody else too, is implemented and it speaks volumes, especially when it works.
So how big is Gopher as a company, people wise?
I am outsourcing most of the
Okay.
work, and so our marketing team is
Hmm.
5 people. Our development team is 4 to 5 people, depending on what level of enhancement we're working on here. My business partner Tom, who founded Gopher with me, has been our fundraiser. Uh, you know, so I've got a bunch of people that I'm in contact with every
Sure.
single day. But if you were to talk about who is on the Gopher roster, you're looking at them.
No, I understand. So you mentioned you had a co-founder. So one of the things my business group says that anything with multiple heads is called a monster for a reason. How has that been with you and your co-founder? Because now you both have this idea, you're both working together, and you're in it together, right? But
Mhm.
someone has to step forward as leader. You're clearly CEO, but was that an easy transition? That he just said, you're it. I'm going to step back and do fundraising, or was there more contention?
No, that's a great question. And this has definitely not been a monster. This has been, which it helped that we were also two friends that
Hmm.
value each other for different reasons. But he will be the first to tell you he's the idea, bigger picture, and I'm looking for how many I's are in there and how many T's are in there to cross. So
Interesting.
it's
Okay.
it's really more of and then so when you're talking about at which stage we're in, and depending on what the conversation is, most of it has to do with some sort of a tactical approach. And so I would take that, and then, here we are 3 years into it, and then those conversations are a lot more often than just, the idea is already out there. So, and Tom has a lot of contacts in the Triangle area, and we feel super passionate about this company and it having a place here. And so we just leverage our strengths along the way. We didn't really ever do a pitch without each other. And it seems to have worked. I wouldn't really try to step on any toes, and he hasn't either. So it's been great. And now as more people come along, they can appreciate that relationship, because it might be somebody get nervous knowing that, hey, these two guys over here, what if one of them goes sideways, and then now what happens to the company? And so that was I talked about concern initially, but it has kind of proven itself otherwise since then.
Nice. Okay. Because it's always interesting. Like we worked with a startup years ago, and they had 6 co-founders, and now they were a young team, and it was like cats just meandering around. Like they couldn't stay focused because they didn't have a leader until finally one of the ladies involved stepped up and became the CEO, and then the whole thing kind of fell into place because she was already leading, just didn't have that title, right? And the title only mattered in that you have to rely on someone to lead, right? You have to, if you have multiple co-founders, everyone has their own lane. That's great. And they all bring something to the table. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I wish I had a co-founder in terms of getting into the trenches. My wife co-founded it with me, but she does finance and stuff like that, not really what the nerdy stuff that I do. And she's been great, but she's not someone like who says, okay, you're going to do sales and I'm going to go do development, right? We didn't have any of that relationship. So I've always been a little envious of that. Well, that's very cool. So let's step back, as I say every week now. Thank you. At least I'm cognizant of it, Gary. Anyway, how did Gopher get started? I mean, there's a lot that you're wandering into whale infested waters, right? You got TaskRabbit, and I know there are others that I'm totally forgetting right now. What inspired you guys to go? We're going to do this better.
Okay, but before we talked about anything being better, we were on a golf course, and for all those golfers out there that know how important the cart is. So when the cart isn't there, uh, you lose your swing lube, all these different things. So we were like, what if there was an app in which you could literally request anything you wanted to, not to the point to where they would, bring it to the clubhouse or whatever, but they would do whatever, whenever we wanted it, and we could just say how desperate we are by throwing out a crazy offer. So I was like, yeah, just another idea. But I was thinking about it. Okay, well, then he said, what if we called it Gopher? And I was like, oh man, all right. And coming from, living in Hollywood, that's what everybody was that ran errands for the entertainment industry. So I'm like, I should definitely haven't heard about that out here. So the second that we finished that round, I went to the Secretary of State and said, "Is Gopher available?" And Gopher LLC was, snatched it up, 125 bucks. Let's get that part out of the way. If it doesn't work out, sell it back, do whatever. Then it was okay, I really still like this idea. Um, how could we be different? What differentiators are worthy of this type of work that it would take? And went through literally every single one of them you can think of. Uber, Lyft, TaskRabbit, Handy, HomeAdvisor, Angie's List, every single thing out there, even super small regional ones, and just to see are they all clinging to the same thing here? Is there any differences here? If there's enough differences here, we know which ones work, right? At least from a valuation standpoint, but what could make Gopher different? And we felt that initially by giving somebody kind of a blank template to work with on expressing what it is that they need to be able to set the price for whatever they, wanted to pay to get, a service provided or some items, had enough room there to where we could, we could start it ourselves. If we weren't even thinking, do we do a friends and family? Do we do a seed? Do we have enough to where we would want to take on this project? And then, the rest is kind of history from there. There was a lot of things along the way that users helped us decide that that was another opportunity. So, if you want me to go into more there, we can. That's a rabbit hole in some cases. But, there was the fact that, because, you titled your own request and you described your own request. So think about how much trouble you can get into there. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, the user stuff, I mean, anytime you have user uploaded or inputted data, you are opening yourself up to a very scary world. We joke, no matter what the app is, we've built all sorts of ones, and you're like, when do the lewd pictures start to show up on this? It's like that's when you've made it. And sadly, in this world, is when someone you're not related to start downloading your app, and of course, what they're going to do is upload something completely offensive. And that's just a common thing. There are, this is a little inside baseball, but there are apps upon apps that help you recognize those things. Like Nintendo invented one so that you couldn't draw a male anatomy with their stylus. They would recognize it and not allow you to upload it. Like they had to build their own. I mean, there are dozens of these things because people just do this. So I imagine when you have tasks and you set the price, you are opening yourself up to some very strange possibilities. So you guys, from a business perspective, I assume you take a percentage of said cut. $50, you guys take a percentage.
Yes. So, and the requester sees it and basically look at it as like you are paying to use the app. There's a small fee. Your fee can range from 99 cents on a delivery up to no more than $4.99 for a home service project, which at the cost of some of these offerings, doesn't even show up as a percentage. And then there's 8% to do, offset the transaction with Stripe. So that's it. We are going to continue to work to be the loss leader when it comes to that transaction revenue, because there's all kinds of other fantastic opportunities there where we can earn, but not on the backs of our users, nor on the workers who really are coming into one of the most worker-centric type apps there are available. If I want to be a Gopher today, I can log in, get my validation through Stripe, can do a Gopher Pro if I want to take a background check, Pro Plus if I want to add DMV to it, and tomorrow I'm making $300 doing things on my own term. And every single request that comes through, I'll know exactly what will be deposited in my account before I do the job. So transparency is important to us, and we provide that on both platforms.
So I want you to come get the bunny. I did say so. And I say it's $50.
Mm-hmm.
I pay immediately $5 for that request or something, some fee, doesn't matter the amount. I pay a fee to you to post that sucker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the transaction fee happens afterwards when you pay through the app. Now, what if I don't pay through the app? I decide to slip this guy $50 on his own. This is something that a lot of apps run to. They run into this is, hey, it's very easy for now because they're meeting face to face most likely in a lot of these situations. So hey, I'll save 10%. It'll be good. Here's $50 or whatever. And that I'm sure is against your TOS, or terms of service.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's also happens. So how do you mitigate that? Like we had one guy who had an idea for an app, and we said, because of just the nature of that idea, that transaction will not happen on your platform, guaranteed. So you're going to lose 80% of your revenue if that's what you think is going to happen. So they had to come up with another monetization strategy. That's why I'm kind of digging, because this is a common problem that a lot of startups have. And I'm curious how you got around it.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily say we're around it. We're trying to be
Mm-hmm.
around it, but we're also trying to, because of the transparency, you're a requester, and on the example that you used, you're going to pay us $4, a little over $4. So we found you whoever you needed, whenever you needed it, for whatever it was, and all
Mm-hmm.
you had to do was pay us that small $4 fee, and then you paid the Gopher to do it whenever you wanted to. When they show up, do whatever the work is, they'll update it along the way. So you can go to update, I'm in progress, update items purchased, update completed, and then you'll rate me and I'll rate you. And then the only way that you would technically be able to go outside the app is if all that stuff happened, and then you just canceled it out of nowhere with saying what, and then you don't ever use the app again, and neither does the other person. If that's what $4 is worth to you, then we lost that person's business, unfortunately. And trust me, I'll try to claw it back somehow through inspiration. But I think that the way that process is done with the dual confirmation, the rating before and after, you see how many jobs the Gopher's done before, and they see as a requester how many jobs and a rating as well. So there's a lot of information to be learned right off the bat. And again, we're trying to be the loss leader. Where we find a little bit of a interesting situation is because there are other delivery type apps and service type apps that do have very high fees. It seems like the tip portion is what gets lost in the transaction there. And so if you came from that mindset and then you come over to Gopher and you put out a relatively low offer, you probably wouldn't get it accepted. But we introduced a counter feature, a year ago, to where if somebody says, can you do XYZ for $5? And they'll say no, but I'd be happy to do it for $7.50. Then the requester can look at it. How bad do I want XYZ? All right, I'll do it for $7.50. So there is a counter feature where we're trying to get to fair market value for every service here. And there's obviously volume's going to help us determine what that is, but we give them a way to do that. Just like there's a brand new feature as well where you don't know the price that you want. You want someone to hang 3 ceiling fans. You want an electrician to do that. I don't know what to offer. So we allow you to say, make me an offer. So literally the request goes out to every Gopher that's on the queue for only home services and even down to electrician. And instead of having a dollar amount on there, it says, make me an offer. And so that person sees, I need 3 ceiling fans. I might have the pictures. I see what I need to do. All right, I'll do that for $150. And then now that goes back to the user. If $150 works, there's a job.
Okay.
Nice.
I have a question, and this is going to turn a little bit, but once you did get the app started, how did you validate the idea, and then how did you market the app?
So we're from Holly Springs. We've got 2 really big communities in this area in which we're both affiliated with. The 12 Oaks area, which is where we're members of Golf and at the time, and then Holly Glen, which is where I live now, like 1,100 unit tract, I think. I'm not sure. So it's big. So we just went grassroots to every social media page, tried to piggyback on some local events in town, set up booths, talk about it, planted, some gophers, some requesters, and see if we could get, some stuff going. You just brought me back to one of the most impossible missions, it seems like. But, here we are almost 30,000 users later, 12,000 transactions, learning more and more.
The growth has been organic through the use of the app because just more gophers and more requesters, or have you been trying to advertise it a little bit more?
So this last year, with the closing of our seed round, or at least the capital raise during the process, allowed us to do a little bit more with marketing than we'd ever done before. We did TV for the first time last year, and we did a lot more marketing where we were spending, boosting things. We did a little programmatic. We're still trying to figure all that out right now. We're actually doing some content with a lot of different requests, which is, it's a little too early, too premature. But if you follow us after this, I think you'll like it. It's an interesting way to involve other parts of communities, but at the same time accomplish making requests and fulfilling them with new gophers, because we're doing this in a new town, or it's Boone, and we're leveraging App State, but it's we didn't have any users up to a month ago.
Yeah, you mentioned you had a 5-person team that was marketing, and I was wondering how you were implementing those 5 people as far as marketing the app, like David said, regionally, or trying to expand past the triangle in the North Carolina area.
That's our goal in 2020, or as we exit 2023. This year, we would really like to scale. We would like to know what is the optimal cost per acquisition on all the different social platforms. How deep do we go into any type of SEO? Does TV work? What venues in TV? I mean, we're going to figure all of that out this year, so that when we do go to a new market, and that new market's not going to just be out of thin air, with only 15,000 of our user base coming from the Raleigh area, that other 15 is coming from all over the place. Well, there's the obvious metros in which have adopted the app, heard about it from the App Store, heard about it from a friend, all these different things. And we'll leverage that community already there with some better content than what we've done in the past. So that's one of our goals, is to always continue to tell the story of Gopher to the audience that, will hear about it in the best possible way that we can.
One thing that's common with startups is that regional aspect. And so it's really interesting to me. So if I live in Des Moines, Iowa, and I download your app because I have a friend, who told me about it, the odds of me getting a gopher, a person to fulfill my request, is very, very low. I picked Des Moines randomly, any city. But probably a smaller city, even worse so. So how do you handle that bad experience for that person? Do you tell them, dude, we're not in Des Moines? Or do you just let them try it and fail? Or how do you handle that regionality of what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, okay, I have literally called personally probably the first 3,000 transactions. And I know that everybody that's working with me now and that's going to continue to work with me hates when I say that, because you should be doing this with your time and so on and so forth. But I've learned so much about this customer base and who wants to use it. But what I would do is literally tell that person, I'm sorry. First of all, how did you hear about us? I'm sorry we couldn't fulfill your app or your request. And then look on a map, because every time somebody downloads, just put a pin map in there to see, all right, is there a potential here where I could maybe muscle up a transaction, which I can't do anymore, but that's what I would try to do. And then would learn, like, how did you possibly hear about us? And if there's a way in which I could create a little network in that particular area, we would try to. I didn't have the resources available that I have today, but with our team today in place and implementing some unique learnings to the app, we'll be able to assist folks at a much greater level, even in some of those remote areas. So for example, where even if there wasn't any gophers in that particular area, we could find where everybody that's looking for exactly what gophers are looking for via the App Store, the Play Store, a Google search, Craigslist, any type of vehicle in which we could quickly, get gophers up and running, to where if that person within an hour resubmitted that request, there might be a likeliness that somebody's available. depending on the nature of it. Now, finding a full electrician, maybe not. Deliver something, yes.
So you wouldn't recommend, and this is why this is so interesting, because we deal with this all the time, and I always struggle with what is the right way. So you would not recommend geo blocking someone, not physically, but someone downloads your app in a city you don't recognize. You don't recommend a banner or something saying, dude, sorry, we couldn't get to you. You say, you reached out to them and kind of did that in a very good customer service way. Is that the better way, you think? Or is it better to put that banner, put the pin in it? Oh, Des Moines, Iowa. Interesting. Boom. Oh, we've gotten 20 in Des Moines, Iowa. Huh, interesting. Okay, maybe we need to go and incentivize Gophers or whatever. How do you, your recommendation is that customer service angle, or would you say automate it a little bit better?
No, that was
Sheer
in
desperation.
a, yes, of course, that was
Yeah,
in the,
been
hey,
there.
you can't be spending your time doing this. So today, if you're in an area in which we don't have Gophers within 20 miles, when you put in the address of wherever your destination is, it's going to automatically see how many Gophers are available. So if it says 0, then I'm trying not to say we're not in your area yet, because within 24 hours we can be in your area. And so I feel like if an app took the liberty to say we're not here, then you're probably thinking they're not going to be tomorrow. With Gopher, you can be. And so I'm trying to meet in the middle here on setting a real expectation. Hey, there's 0 Gophers available right now, or maybe 1 or 2, but not to just definitively say, no, we're not here yet. Kick rocks until we come. Wouldn't want to do that.
Here's an interesting, now this might be a little too nerdy, but what do you define as Gophers available? Is that they're actively open?
No, that's a good question. So today, what it would mean is that you have downloaded the app, fulfilled your payout, or set it up basically so that you can get paid, and that
Mm-hmm.
in the filter where you select the type of jobs you have available, it matches the type of job that's needed for that requester. So you wanted a delivery, it would be everybody that's registered and able to be on the app. It's not like green light go. These people are just out here with white knuckling ready to go. It's not quite that sophisticated
It's
yet.
not just the total number of users in the geographical area. It's ones that are
Yes.
actually relevant to that request.
Yeah, that's a learning I want to be able to tackle this year is if you see X amount are available, that like you can, if it's greater than 1, you're probably going to get that job. That's how I would like it to be. But I don't know if I said this, I don't think I did, but Gophers aren't employees. So we're a true marketplace. To have that type of ability and, awareness of who these people are at what times, we're going to have to do something a little bit different, whether it be some sort of like subscription model or perks that we can provide for them or something like that. And we've got our finger on that right now, but just not enough to really say, hey, here's what we think we're going to do.
One thing that you guys, I'm sure, are not dealing with yet, but it will come, is the scary side of this app, right? At some point, you're going to reach what's the right word? A quorum, horizon, event horizon, whatever the science fiction term I'm thinking of. But you're going to start getting bad people on the app. It happens with every app. For instance, Airbnb made news a decade ago when someone rented out a house and trashed it, just completely annihilated it. Because of that, Airbnb started, because everyone freaked out and didn't want their house to be rented, they started saying, hey, if you rent with us, we got $1 million of insurance to protect your house. You're fine. They updated very quickly to have this kind of thing. So this is the kind of thing every app has to deal with at some point. Of course, probably you haven't had to deal with it now, but have you guys thought about that stuff? Contingency plans, something bad happens, someone got hurt, whatever, and it's accident, maybe not an accident, whatever. How, like Uber, bad drivers. I mean, there's all sorts of stories, bad riders, right? You hear about poor drivers getting beat up by their rider. I mean, it could go both ways.
Yeah, or even just Craigslist, these stories, you hear those too. And that's just setting up, a sale, and then what happens afterward, they're not involved in, but still, there's some stories that come along after you get a certain number of users.
Yes.
There's going to be some bad apples.
So to answer your question, from day one, inception, legal and PR have been top of mind. And obviously, PR can be 10 times more likely or more expensive because of the drama that comes with it. Whereas we might not be liable in any way, shape, or form for what happened, but you heard
Sure.
Gopher. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, we are wanting to make it to where there's trust along the way, and want to try to do that by, understanding where this user is in their life cycle on the platform on both sides. This Gopher's done 1,000 and their background check. This requester's had 500 requests made, 5 stars. And then, there's other things too that we're going to decide. Do we want everyone to have a mandatory background check, even for something that where they're not even going to really be seeing people that often? We're trying to think through all of those and the timing. But if it's up to me, I want the timing to be yesterday, because if you're talking about how I'm having to prove trust, then I'll fail in some way, shape, or form. And so, to answer your question, that is something that's always going to be important to us.
Sure.
And fortunately, all of these other folks, especially Craigslist, has a ton of case presidents out there to learn from. But
Yeah.
again, things happen, and you just got to try to figure out how do you learn from them. And hopefully it doesn't happen to you, and you can learn from someone else, because that's how we created our terms of service, privacy policy, our prohibited list. All of those things have been from people that have kind of gotten there before us.
Where are you guys at in terms of your life cycle? Are you on a runway? Are you fully sufficient in terms of you're paying, you're making enough revenue to pay your bills? Are you making a salary? Where are you in your world?
Yeah, so we are in our very, let's call it. People get mad when I do this as well. I would call it pre-revenue, although we're not profitable, but we're making money.
Mhm.
But our revenue stream pathway is wildly different than most, and that you would think. Whereas we're learning about behaviors as we go. And so the more transactions, the more behaviors there are. And so that's kind of what I mentioned earlier about being the loss leader. It's kind of fits into the scheme of that. Now, it's definitely not how you go to VCs and ask for money, or PEs and ask for money. So we're not making revenue or real revenue yet, but the information that comes from a transaction, which is all compliant, but it's totally behavioral. Like, for example, you guys ever seen Google rewards? You get popped up, a Google rewards. Were you at one of these 5 locations? And you were, because that's how Google knew you were. And then it asks you a series of questions on down, and paying you, up to $1 and something for that information. When I'm hoping that everybody has massive integrity out there and never is trying to fudge those numbers to see if it'll get them $1 versus 70 cents. But you don't have to ask those questions. There's really no benefit in doing that. One of these days, we'll be able to tell you every single thing that they needed to know right off the bat. And so cut out that person and go ahead and just pay us for the information that you're looking for, which actually did happen, and isn't like a survey to where you're asking for somebody in whatever particular topic you're trying to learn about. Now, was this person in the morning? Is this person grieving? Is this person super happy? Information is always different depending on our mood sets, where all the information that we're going to be able to provide and capture is non-personal, so it's compliant, but it also is valuable to retailers, vendors, etc.
And
Okay.
then do you have I'm guessing, a model to stream advertising into the feeds eventually?
Yes, on both platforms. So one of them will be a little bit easier than the other. One will obviously just provide you with incentives. Now, we are working on something a little bit more proprietary on the Gopher side, and that's where we feel like there's a really good play too. Now, with Gopher, anything you want can be attained at multiple locations in some cases. So, for example, if you wanted a particular type of beer, let's say, well, there's multiple retailers that have that. which one wants to steer you and to buy it from them to take it to the requester. So that's kind of a
Okay.
hint to what we're looking for.
What is your goal with the company, you say? Do you want to, you're waving your magic wand and it's 5, 10 years, the years don't matter, just X number of years. What is success to you? Are you the next TaskRabbit where you're worth $1 gazillion? Are you, I'm 10 employees and I'm making a nice salary and everybody's making good money? It's a nice regional lifestyle business. What is success to you?
Success to me is being able to hand off this company to somebody to take it to where I never could. So when we get to that level, I'm not going to be the CEO. I'm trying to find somebody, and I've been doing this for a year. I'm actively interviewing people to come and take us to the moon. I know that with my experience alone, I don't have the capacity to do that. I'm not easily duped. So, I mean, I'm going to know if in a lot of cases, is this the right face of our company? But I think that where I can provide the most value is in the product. I've got a good pulse on both sides of the marketplace, on internally and from a competitor standpoint. I mean, I didn't build this company and not do every other job that's available out there, every other gig that's available out there, without remaining completely convicted that we have the right model to do really big things. Just think of something powered by Gopher all over the place with tons of businesses. And so right now our goal is just to stay the course, build this tech stack to where it's definitely attractive and both users like it, businesses like it, and then have somebody take us, for a ride here. If I've got a seat on the bus, it's still a seat.
That's true.
I got you.
All right. So one thing we ask everybody that we interview here, John, what are the top 3 pieces of advice that you would give any entrepreneur, new business, or startup?
First one, vet your business to fail with the goal in mind of trying to show how this idea cannot work. Look everywhere to see if you really have a place on the market. And the reason I say that is because once you do and you still convicted, it'll come from a much deeper level than before. When you are trying to look for ways for your business to fail and you still feel wildly convicted and passionate that it has a chance to make it, it will be to your benefit for sure. I think that if people can feel your passion and conviction, if they're on the fence on joining your team, being an investor, being a team member, that sometimes that is going to be the difference. We've had a lot of people invest in us, not just invest for the return. And I think it was because of what I just mentioned. Okay, so I think another one would be know your value to the business at all parts and where your value is today. I'm mostly speaking to brand new founders who really love their idea, but don't want any other hands in the cookie jar. Sometimes your value today is not where it's going to be later. And that could probably cause some stickiness in that not wanting to change guards. And, that person might be the one that takes you to the next level. Not through my own personal experience, but through experiences in translation from other people that I respect, investors, business people, really wanted a certain person to entertain the idea of stepping aside so that they can meet a growth spurt a little faster. And because of this is my business, it didn't necessarily go as planned. So I would always just try to pay that advice forward. If you find yourself not really humble and you wanting to be the best all the time with everything that has to do with your business, you might not be. When it comes time to build a team, do it with somebody you trust. Find people that you trust. However it takes you to get to know people, however you break bread with people, find people that you can trust. I've, over this last greater than a year, been looking for, people to come onto this team. And as we're starting to make some deals and bring some people on, it's really refreshing to know I don't have to second guess agendas and don't have to second guess, people's expectations. If you're aligned and you're transparent from the start, and you can, trust somebody, to me, I think you're going to get a lot further with your business than if you're always CYA type of thing.
Awesome.
Right.
Good advice, man. Well, I appreciate you being here, John. I love learning about startups. I think this was really interesting because it touches on so many things that so many startups run into, such as regionality, pricing, avoiding getting paid because you've got, get paid during the transaction, those kinds of things. We run into those all the time. So it's nice to hear someone who's in the thick of it and figuring that out in the trenches. So I appreciate your time very much.
Yeah, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity.
John, if anybody wants to learn anything more about you or about Gopher, how can they get in touch?
So my name's John Newbury. I'm all over every social platform. Gopher is under Gopher Inc. in most cases, but if you're searching Gopher mobile app or Gopher Inc., you'll find us on any social platform. And then our website is www.gophergo.io.
I like that. Gopher Go. All right. Well, we'll include those links in the show notes. So they'll be below the video here on YouTube and throughout all the other podcast platforms that we distribute on. And if anybody has questions for us, you can email us at hello@thebigpixel.net. You could leave a comment below this video, or you could just connect with us on any one of our social media platforms as well.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you again, John, for joining us. This has been a lot of fun.
Yes, sir. Take care, fellas.
See y'all next week.